Hi, and welcome to Art with Mrs. Torres. Today we're going to be learning about Karla Gerard. Her paintings are called contemporary folk art. That means that she is self-taught and she lives in Maine and she is still alive and working on beautiful paintings even today. I can't wait to teach you some of the different techniques that we're going to be doing to try to be inspired by her work, but we're going to be creating our own houses and our own landscape pictures today. Now, one thing that's kind of cool about Karla Gerard is that she hides an animal in each one of her paintings. So we'll have to be looking in our pictures today to see if we can find any of the animals she likes to hide. So let's get ready to do our own version of a contemporary folk house.
Well, welcome, my amazing artists. Today we're going to be painting a picture of a fun little house with some trees and a sparkly moon. This painting is inspired by this artist. The artist's name is Karla Gerard, and you can see she loves to work with fun colors. She made her roof purple, she made her door pink, and she made her windows green and yellow. So I'm going to be having some fun creating my house with some fun colors today too. One thing I want you to notice is there is an animal hidden somewhere in the painting. Can you see an animal hidden in the painting? Right here, there's a bird sitting up on the fence. So we'll be creating a bird a little bit later once we're finished making our fence. So let's figure out what we're going to need today. You're going to need a piece of watercolor paper because we're going to be painting. So make sure you have some watercolor paper or some thicker pieces of paper. Construction paper will work if you don't have watercolor paper. Another thing you're going to need are crayons. We don't need to use any pencils today. We're going to be using crayons for drawing. The other item you're going to need is some watercolor paint. So watercolor paint, and when we're working with watercolor paint, of course, we need water. I'm putting my water in a nice heavy jar so it doesn't tip over. You can also put it in a bowl. Lastly, we're going to need a piece of napkin or paper towel, and this way we can use it to clean our brush in between watercolor changes. So let's get our items all together. Meet me back here once you have everything ready. I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back. Let's get ready to use our fun crayons to create our house. Now, the first thing we're going to do is decide where you want your house to be. You can turn your paper this direction or you can make it tall. Tall is vertical. I'm going to be making my picture tall, vertical, so I have lots of room to make some smoke coming out of my chimney. When you are drawing with our crayons today, we want to push kind of hard with our crayons so that we need a nice thick coat of wax on our paper. That way when we paint over it later, our crayon's going to show through. The first thing we're going to design is our house. Now, I want you to decide what color you want your house to be. The color you want your house to be is the color crayon you want to be using. So in Karla Gerard's painting, she made a brown house. I like brown, so I'm going to be making my house brown. But you can make your house blue or purple or whatever color you would like. So let's begin by first drawing the bottom of our house. So if we look right here, it's a straight line that goes across. So I'm going to come up a little bit from the bottom of my paper, and I'm going to draw a straight line that comes across. Next, she's got a line that goes up for the side of the house. So I'm going to draw a line that goes up for the side of the house. And then about halfway across, she's got another line that comes up. Now we want to make sure this line that comes up is about the same length as this one. So I'm going to bring it up. It's not quite long enough, a little bit longer. That looks about right. And then look, both these lines come up and form a point. So all we're going to do now is make a point. So what I like to do is find the middle with my finger between these two lines and come up above that and make a dot. So that is between those two lines. Now it's very simple to draw two lines that come down on an angle to create the roof. I'm going to go over my lines one more time so they're a little darker. Now the back of the house is very easy. All we have to do is draw another straight line up that matches this line. So right here at the end, I'm going to draw another straight line that comes up about the same height as the other one. And then I'm going to draw new lines that go this direction, horizontal. So look at this one. We're just going to draw one line from here to here, which is going to form a square. So I'm just going to connect these two. Now I've got a square. And the final part is the top of the roof. Now the top of the roof is going to go straight across, and then I'm going to connect it down. So from here, I'm going to go straight across and connect it down. Now your house might look different than mine, and that is absolutely okay. Whatever you come up with is going to be fantastic. What else could we add? Ooh, I like this idea, a chimney. We could put a chimney up there. What color would you make your chimney? I think I'm going to make mine red. So I'm going to make a little square or rectangle on the top. I'm going to darken my line a little bit more. And while I have this red in my hand, I like this door. It's kind of a red or a pink color, so I think I'm going to be doing the same thing for my door. What shape did I just make? That's a rectangle, which is just a long square. When I'm finished drawing my door, I'm going to add some lines running down because it looks like she did the same thing. We don't have to copy though, we could do something different. When I'm all finished making my door, it's time to create some windows. Well, she has 2 windows, but there's a nice big space up here. Maybe you want to make 3 windows. What color do you want to outline your windows in? She outlined hers in green, but you could outline yours in a different color. Now, if you notice, look at how big my door is. I don't even have room for windows on the side, so I'm going to make a window instead above my door. And that's okay. I'm going to make another window over here on the side of my house. And it doesn't have to be the same color as the first window. You could change colors. We're not going to color anything in. We're going to be using our paints to do that. When I'm finished doing my windows and my doors, then we're going to create something called a horizon line. Now, the horizon line is this line that separates the ground from the sky. What shape did she make her horizon line? Is it a straight line or did she make a curve? Looks like a curve, like a half of a giant snowball. So let's take a color that would be a good color for the sky. And I'm going to use blue for my sky, and we're going to create a horizon line. Now you could draw a straight line, or you could make it curved like she did. So if you want to make it curved, you just can come around like you're drawing a circle. And then you're going to pretend you're coming through the house and you're going to come out the other side. I'm going to trace over that line a little bit darker so it shows up. Next comes our trees. Oh my goodness, she has 3 trees in her picture. We do not have to do 3 trees. You could just do 2 if you want to. Now the first part of the tree I see is the big brown trunk. Well, that looks pretty easy. All I got to do is draw a long pointy stick pointing up to the sky. I'm going to draw another one over here. Do you have room to make 2 on one side? Darkening my line a little bit. And she has one way over here on the side. Do you have any room on this side where you could add one? If you don't, it's okay. In my first picture, look, I made my house so gigantic, I didn't even have room for it. When you're all finished making that part of your tree, then we're going to change colors. What color do you think we need to find in our crayon box next? green. Now, I have two different shades of green in my crayon set. Do you have two different shades? If you do, we're going to use both shades. If you don't, just don't worry. You can just use one. So I'm going to start with my light green first. Oh my goodness, I think these are the easiest trees I've ever seen. It looks like an upside down V, doesn't it? Or they look like arrows pointing up to the sky. So all we have to do is make an upside down V. She did it 3 times. So that's 1, 2, 3. I think that's the easiest tree I've ever done. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I forgot about my little one over here. 1, upside down V, 2, 3. Now when I'm all finished with my light green, I'm going to put it back, and now I'm going to grab my dark green, and I'm just going to do the same thing right next to the light green, just to kind of darken it up a little bit. It's looking pretty good. Now the final part of our picture is to create the front. This is called the foreground, the front of the picture, the foreground. So when you look here, what do you think that is? What do you think these lines are right here? Can you tell what that is? It's a fence. So if we were coming to visit her in her house, we would go right here in this opening of the fence. This little gate is open, and that's when we would walk down this path and go to her front door. So we're going to make a fence now at the bottom of our picture. What color do you think that is? To me, it looks black. Does it look black to you? I think it's black. So I'm going to get my black crayon, and the first thing I notice on that fence is there's a short line here and a little bit longer line going this direction. So I'm going to make a short line here and a longer line here. Now this one sticks up a little higher than there. Hers is kind of bent, it's kind of wonky. And then we're going to skip a space because that's where our path is going to be. And then over here, she's got 1, 2, 3 lines, and we're going to make them kind of about the same height. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make them about the same height. So I'm going to make it a little bit longer, a little bit thicker. And then I'm going to connect those with a line that goes across. Now you can see her line isn't straight. That's because if you were building a fence out of wood, the wood is not going to be perfectly straight. It's going to be kind of bendy and crooked. Well, there we go. Now we have our fence. Now you can see that my fence doesn't look exactly like hers, and I hope your picture doesn't look like mine. I want it to look like your picture. Now we're going to take this black crayon while we have it in our hand, and we're going to draw a little path that runs up to our little cabin in the snow. So we're going to come right here from the door, and we're going to draw the first line that comes across from the edge of the door over toward the opening here. So I'm just going to make a little mark right by the door here. So I'm going to mark, and I'm going to make a little line that comes over here. And then I'm going to make a mark right here by the edge of that door. And I'm going to make this line come out to the path. The next thing we're going to do with our black crayon is we're going to outline everything that we drew on our house with our black crayon. Now this is just going to help it show up a little bit better later when we start coloring and painting our picture. So I'm just going over all of my lines with my black crayon. It's not covering up the other line. It's just kind of outlining it to make it show up a little bit more. Do you notice inside the windows how she made a plus sign in the window? That makes it look like you have a window pane. This is the wood that would separate the glass in the window. Do you notice on the door she has a little doorknob? So I might want to add a doorknob to my door. And I'm going to outline my chimney. And then I'm going to run my black crayon down my tree. And I'm going to run my crayon along my little arrows that I drew with my green, just to add a little bit of black so everything matches. And when I'm all finished, my final thing is to create our moon in the sky. Now, I won't be using the black for the moon, so I'm going to switch over. And now I'm going to be looking for white. Now, the white crayon that we're going to use up here in the top of our picture is not going to show up at first. So you might want to start with a little bit of yellow. She used brown, but you might want to use yellow first just to draw a circle for your moon. Now, don't worry if it's not perfectly round, it doesn't matter. And once you add your circle of yellow, then you can go in and fill the whole thing in with white. I'm just scrabbling around in a circle all the way around on the inside to fill that space in with white. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to come over here to my chimney, and I'm going to be making some smoke coming out of my chimney. So you can see with her paintbrush, she just kind of went swirly, whirly, 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 whirly up to the top. So I'm going to do the same thing. Do it a couple times. And the last thing is we're going to put some white dots with our crayon all throughout the sky. Now, as I'm doing this, it's going to look like I'm drawing with an invisible crayon because you're not going to be able to see the snow right now. But I promise we're going to get a surprise later when we paint our sky. It's not showing right now, but I hope that it will show later when we paint our blue sky. When you're all finished with that, we're going to come down to our pathway. And we're going to scribble some white in our pathway. We're going to scribble a little bit of white in our snow too. So right underneath the tree, I want you to scribble a little white. And you can just take your crayon and scribble like this. It's okay if it grabs a little bit of the other color because we're going to be coloring other colors over this later. Now, our final part of our picture is to add a little bird, if you would like to. Now, I'm going to be using blue for my bird. She used gray for hers, but I made my bird a blue bird, kind of like our scrub jay, the last lesson that we did. So I'm going to take a blue crayon. Now, the first thing we need to do is to find where do you want your bird sitting. He could be sitting on any of those posts. And the first thing we're going to do is draw kind of like a little jelly bean shape. I'm just making an oval and color it in. Next comes a tail. That's pretty simple right up here at the back. I'm just going to draw a straight line that comes out. And you can see that that bird's going to have a pointy little beak. So I got to make sure I'm using just a tiny bit of the crayon to make my beak for my bird. That's close enough. Now we're going to get ready to create some fun colors using our paint. So I'm going to take my crayons, put those off to the side. And now I'm going to come in with my paint. All right, let's see what your paints look like. Mine are still a little wet from the last project I did, but yours are probably dry. So what we need to do is add a little water to each one of our colors that we're going to be using today. So take your cup of water, put it right above your paint set so that you can reach it. The first thing we're going to do is put a little bit of water in our yellow. Now, when we put water, we're not going to actually touch our brush into the paint. We're just going to set our brush right at the very side. And we're just going to tap it right on the edge and let that water fall into the paint. So you're going to put about 5 drops in there. And then we're going to rinse our brush in case we got any yellow on it. And now we're going to put a couple drops of water on red. See how I'm just tapping my brush on the side and the water's falling right into the red paint. I'm going to put a little bit on my orange, just in case I want to use orange. Rinsing my brush in between. And I also want to put some colors, water on my brown, on my tree trunks, and possibly my house. I haven't decided if I'm going to make my house brown yet or not. Another color we're going to need a little bit of is blue. So I'm going to put some water on my blue. Rinse my brush and put some water in my green. Then, once I've got water in those colors, I see a pretty shade of purple on her roof. Do you have purple in your paint set? I do. I'm going to put some water in purple because I do like purple. When you're all finished, you're going to rinse your brush really well. And we're going to start to paint with the lightest color. So when I look at all these colors, the lightest color I see is yellow. Now, I'm not going to set my hair of Mr. Paintbrush into the paint. I'm going to twirl him very gently on the very top where the water is floating. Just very softly. I'm not sticking his head underneath the paint. I'm just very lightly putting him in there. And first I'm going to paint yellow for my windows so that the light is on inside and it looks like somebody is in the house. I want you to make sure that your napkin is near you so that you can wipe your brush off each time we switch colors. So I'm going to take my brush, move it in my water. I'm not going to tap my brush on the top. I'm just going to slide it up the side of the water bowl and check it to make sure it's clean. Now the next color I'm going to look for is orange. I think I'm going to try a little bit of orange. I'm going to tap my brush in that water that's floating. And I'm going to put a little orange somewhere. Let's see, maybe I'll put a little orange on my house. So add a little water and paint this side of the house orange. And I might make the other side of the house a different color. You don't have to follow what her painting looks like. You get to create your own picture. So in her picture, she used orange and brown and mixed the two colors together. I might do that too. I haven't decided yet. No, if you have any puddles on your picture, you can scoop them up with your brush and take that color and use it somewhere else. So I'm just grabbing it and brush that color somewhere else. Or you could rinse out your brush and then tap your brush on your napkin. You can see my brush still has some orange paint in it. So when you're cleaning your brush, you want to make sure you tap it on your napkin to make sure it's clean before you mix on to the next color. All right, I'm going to rinse out my brush, slide it up the side of the water bowl, check it on my napkin. It's looking much cleaner now. And I'm going to move on to red. Red, I'm only going to need a little bit, and that's for my door and my chimney. So I'm going to put a little red on my chimney and a little red on my door. Now, if you grab too much color, you can always take your brush and wipe it right on your napkin like this to get rid of that extra color. Right, once my chimney on my door is done, I have to decide what color I want to make my roof. So I really liked her purple color, and I'm going to add a little bit more water to my purple and make sure it's not too dark. Oh my goodness, that looks pretty dark. I might want to add a little bit more water to my brush before I start painting it. Oh, that's a pretty color. I like purple. Now, if you have too much color on your brush, you can rinse out your brush and then just use a wet brush with no paint on it, and you can scoop up that old color and lighten it up with the water. And if you have any puddles, scoop them up with your brush and just tap them on your napkin. You're going to use your brush kind of like a giant sponge. When you're all finished painting the roof of your house, Then we're going to come down and we're going to make a really light coat of blue at the bottom where the snow is. Now, we don't want our snow to be blue like the water. We just want to add a tiny bit of blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint just water only right over here. Just a little bit of water right over my bird, right around my tree, right underneath here. And then once I have water on this half of my hill, I'm going to tip my brush into that water that's floating in the blue. And I'm going to blot just a couple drops of blue on my paper. Now I'm going to clean my brush really well so that there's no more blue paint on it. And then I'm just going to move my brush around like this and spread that little tiny drops of blue into the water that's on my paper. And you can see my blue isn't very dark this way. Now let's say you got way too much blue and it looks like an ocean like that. That's okay, we can fix it. All you have to do is add a little bit more water to it, like this. And then you can take your napkin and tear a piece of napkin off, roll it up, and you can use your napkin to blot that big glob of blue away. Do you see how I did that? Now it's nice and soft again. Pretty neat trick. We can save this and use it later. So I'm going to go ahead and put some water now on this side of my paper. And a little bit of water over that path. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a little bit more water to my blue paint, not stirring it deep. I'm going to put a couple drops of blue in the snow, in the path, rinse out my brush, and then very gently mix that blue with the water. I'm just very softly brushing over my picture. When I'm all finished and I filled in my pathway and the snow underneath the trees, then I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm going to get my little tissue that I used earlier, or you can make a new one, and very softly I'm going to tap it on the snow, just so that it's not too dark. Plus I want to get rid of all those puddles. We're going to get ready to paint our sky next, and our sky is going to be a little bit darker blue. So we really want to make sure our snow is pretty dry before we start painting our skies. So the sky is going to be a little bit brighter, a little bit more paint. So I'm going to use water first, and I'm going to put some water right around the moon. Putting right around the moon, about halfway down to the trees. And I'm not going to do this side of my paper yet, just one half at a time. A little bit of water. Now, what color are you going to make your sky? In Karla Gerard's painting, she has blue and purple in her sky. I thought those were two pretty colors together. So I'm going to start with some watery blue. We already learned how to do this with our snow, but this time we're going to make it a little bit brighter. So we don't have to blot it with our napkin. This time we can actually make our blue darker. Once I have one half of my paper painted, I'm going to paint it right up to the line in the snow. We want the sky to be darker than the snow, so you might have to add a little bit more blue paint, just so it's a little darker. Or, I told you we could also add some purple, the way that Karla Gerard did hers. So if you want to add some purple, you can go ahead and rinse your brush, grab a tiny bit of purple, and you can blot some purple in your picture too. So purple and blue together are beautiful. See how I'm just kind of wiggling my brush around, having fun, just playing with the paint. So I have one half of my sky done. Now I'm going to do the other half of my sky. I'm going to rinse out my brush. I'm going to put water first on this side of the paper. And my paper's starting to curl up. Is yours curling up? You can push it down with your fingers. I'm going to add a little bit of water on this side. And once that water touches the paint on the other side, it's just going to start traveling over to the other side of my paper a lot easier. All right, now I'm going to get over to this section. I'm going to start with my blue first, just like I did on my other side. I'm going to hold my paper down with my fingers, painting right around my fingers. It'll come off when we wash our hands later. And if you want to add more purple to your picture, you can, or you can have your sky be purple on one side and then fade to blue on the other side. Do you notice how our smoke and our sky showed up also, even if we paint over it, because our crayon is made of wax and the wax resists the paint. Well, I hope you had fun today painting our picture. I had so much fun painting with you. And I loved teaching you about Karla Gerard. And hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.